Hi, I'm Elizabeth Curry Chandler. I'm a journalist and writer who, together with my husband, co-founded the website Goodreads, an adventure that completely took over our lives. Today I'm editor-in-chief of Goodreads, and I'm still doing what I've always loved to do, interviewing and writing about creative and dynamic people. For this podcast, I'm talking to the world's most interesting people about what they're reading and why. Support for Books of Your Life comes from Audible, with an unmatched selection of audiobooks in every genre. Start a 30-day trial and your first one is free. Visit audible.com/Goodreads or text Goodreads to 500-500. In the world of entrepreneurs, Radha Agrawal stands out. There aren't many Canadian-born, Japanese-Indian identical twin sisters raising cash on Wall Street. But with her sister Mickey and a friend, Radha did just that. In 2011, they created Thinx, a company that sells washable period underwear. It's become a brand with tens of millions in sales. Now, Radha is the CEO of a different kind of company, Daybreaker, an organization born from a moment when Radha realized people in New York City needed a new way to connect.
When I was 35 years old and single, I'd go out to the nightclubs, I'd go out to different sort of parties, but there's always mean bouncers at the door looking up and down, sort of everyone drinking alcohol on some new designer drug, no one actually connecting on the dance floor. People are all on their cell phones. So the idea was, what if we took all the positive stuff from nightlife and removed all the negative stuff from nightlife? So what if we replaced the mean bouncers with a hugging committee? Or what if we replaced the alcohol with green juice, coffee, and tea and healthy sort of alternatives? And what if we did it in the morning at 6 a.m.? What if we started your day with community moments, having fun, dancing, dressing up in costumes, all before going to work? And it really took off.
5 years later, Daybreaker is throwing parties regularly in 25 cities and a dozen college campuses. And the community has grown enormous. Radha Agrawal has proven to be an expert on building community. And now she's out with a how-to guide. It's called Belong, Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life. Like the kind that people have found through Daybreaker, which Radha says now has 500,000 members.
Turns out people really want to connect in the morning, and turns out people really do want to dance. Like we say that we're not dancers, but each and every one of us are. So it's exciting to see.
I think dance is the most primal thing about us. I always smile when I see music playing, and you'll look at little kids if you're at a street fair or in a shopping mall or in a public place, and you'll see adults standing still, but you always see the 1-year-olds, the 2-year-olds moving their bodies.
Absolutely.
Feeling the music.
Dance is not only primal, which is exactly right, but it's also the most healing modality that exists on planet Earth as a human being. When you dance, it's meditation movement form. When you dance, you're actually unlocking this sort of creative neural pathways that have been deadened for so long. And you're letting go of all these sort of stuck energetic points in your body. And when you just let yourself sort of go without judging yourself. There's so much judgment of self around dance. How do I look? Do I look cool? I can't dance. And so to get back to that childlike state of wonder and joy and just move exactly how our bodies are meant to flop around in these weird meat suits that we get to be in for 100 years is a beautiful reminder.
So you've written your first book, Belong. How did your story with Daybreaker lead you to writing this book?
Well, boy, the community sure inspired me to write this book because, when I launched the community, when the movement exploded around the world, it was sort of a pleasant surprise. But then all of a sudden, my inbox started getting flooded with requests to speak, requests to meet for coffee, requests to do workshops, all kinds of things. And I realized, oh my gosh, there is such a massive need for community building, such a massive need for creating how to find friends. How the heck do I find my people? 1 in 4 Americans have 0 friends to confide in, and this number has tripled in the last 30 years. And I want to put to paper a very simple guide for how the heck do I find my people. And then also from my own experience, the first page of my book is, when I turned 30, I realized I didn't belong and that I'd spent my 20s in sports bars, watching sports I didn't care about, drinking beer I didn't want to drink. I was hanging out with people who didn't light my fires. And then that began this personal, internal quest for, what do I care about? What do I value? What do I want out of this wonderful life? And when I turned 30 and I realized, okay, time to make a change in my life, the next morning I woke up and I wrote down a 3-column list. Column 1 was all the qualities I wanted in a friend. And think about it, like we do this for love interests, we do this for our professional careers, but rarely, if ever, do we write down what we're looking for in a friend. There's something shameful in some ways to say, I want friends who do this. There's so much shame around belonging that you're like, yeah, I have friends. I have plenty of friends. But column 2 was all the qualities that I didn't want in a friend. So, friends who talked poorly about each other, friends who shoulder shrugged and just said, sure, I'll do this, instead of leaning in and saying, an enthusiastic yes, right? So then column 3, which I think was the most important column for my life in that moment, was all the qualities that I needed to embody in order to attract the friends that I wanted. So I need to be less of a workaholic, right? I need to be less judgmental. I need to be a better listener. I need to be, more forgiving, all those kinds of things. And those 3 columns were the beginning of this journey. And once you set the intention and actually the magic of putting pen to paper, all of a sudden it's a wild, weird thing. I'm a science nerd, but the universe really sort of starts listening. And all of a sudden the beginnings of this beautiful world unfold for you.
When I asked Radha what was the book that changed her life, she answered without hesitation, The Value Tales, written by Dr. Spencer Johnson with his wife Anne. You might recognize that author's name. Spencer Johnson went on to write one of the best-selling business books of all time, Who Moved My Cheese? The Value Tales was a simple concept, a series of cartoon biographies of famous people, published in the 1970s.
I read them since I was, 3 years old, and I probably read them. I read them to this day, actually. I read them to my niece. They got passed down to my now nieces and nephews. But things like the value of creativity, the value of learning. So the value of creativity was the story of Thomas Edison. And the value of learning was the story of Marie Curie. And in these books, you learned about these incredible humans that lived in the real world. And I think so much of my entrepreneurial interest and excitement to solve the world's problems, I really believe came from the deep inspiration that I got from these books that taught about real people. And in each of these books, there had these imaginary friends. So, the Valley of Tenacity of the story of the hockey player Maurice Richard, and his imaginary friend was a hockey puck. Marie Curie's imaginary friend was a test tube because she was a scientist. And each one had these really cool imaginary friends that related to their careers and their lives. And it just made learning about their lives so much more memorable. I still remember all of this to this day with such fondness and also still with such deep inspiration.
Was there a specific book that you read over and over in the series that changed you in some way?
I read them all so much, but I would say in some ways it's Jackie Robinson's book on the value of courage, because, being the first Black man in baseball, I just was so moved by that. And for me as a female entrepreneur, as I went through the world of entrepreneurship, it was just a man's world. And the courage, I think that word, the value of courage, is and I talk about that's a thread throughout my whole entire book. To make friends, to belong, to build your dream, to whatever life that you want requires so much courage. What he went through, being booed, being sort of thrown things at, and just having the courage to stand up to sort of clear a path for a whole generation of Black athletes, I think is one of the most courageous things, and it gave me so much courage to say, you know what, basically I have eggs being thrown at my face from all of these male investors, but I will continue pushing through because I believe in my idea, and someone will believe in me, someone will open the door for me, and eventually they did. And so, yeah, so much of that imprinting happened early on through these value tales.
I love that. I do think women have to be very brave.
Yeah, here's a wild thing for you. In my book, actually, there's a whole page dedicated to this big idea, which is that fear and empathy are BFFs. So, and women are so much more empathetic. So that fear gets in our way even more. So when we care so much about someone else's feelings, I don't want to step on someone's toes. I don't want to put someone out by asking them to do me a favor. The more it stops us from pursuing our dream. So as soon as we realize that it's our empathy, which is our strength, that in many ways is also our Achilles heel, all of a sudden we realize, oh, wait a minute, I can compartmentalize the two. I can actually lead a life that is fearless, but that is still empathetic. And I think that's really where I hope the world or the masculine investor can lean into their feminine, because we're all of us. I have masculine and feminine. Men have masculine and feminine, but we have been trained, and so much of our loneliness epidemic is actually with men. Men are the ones who are the most afraid to admit, I'm lonely, I'm scared, I don't have anyone, I'm fine, I'm a man. Men don't need anybody. We're good, And so much of that shame around belonging happens with men, and so much of shame around leaning into your feminine, into this idea that I'm sensitive, I care, I want to be loved just like everybody else, is something that is actually a vulnerability that men need to lean into. And I think they're just starting to realize how much better it feels.
I think on the same lines of males and entrepreneurs and the business culture, I have to admit that the second book you recommended for us, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, which is the story of the evolution of Nike. First off, I really enjoyed the book, but I was also a little bit conflicted. It was a lot of stories about bro culture, hijinks, drinking, questionable moral decisions, and also kind of a questionable personal life. And I, as a female entrepreneur, I was interested to know, why did you choose this story to recommend to us?
First of all, I want to bring that up because I think it is an important insight to share. And I think so many people who are salivating over this book do talk about that. And I think that's one of the things I'm so glad that you're bringing it up is why I want to talk about it, is that we do celebrate so much of this bro culture, this bro success. But what I did find inspiring about it was this idea that this guy was leading a life that was, you know what, I can do anything. I'm going to call up every bank that I can find. I'm going to, against all odds, not give up. I'm going to have so many threats against me, legal issues against me, so many things that sort of, so many obstacles that come up, and I'm not giving up. And I think, again, to the point of empathy and fear with women, as soon as sort of someone's talking poorly about us, or there's some negative legal thing that happened around us, we recoil, we sort of shimmy away. And I think this book is actually really important for women to read, to sort of understand what not to do in terms of the bro culture side, but also to see how just sort of fearless men can be.
I love that he admits that he didn't really know what he was doing most of the time. And it's comforting because I think, I don't know what I'm doing.
None of us do. None of us know what we're doing.
Remember how we talked, Dad? How I said I wanted to see the world? The Himalayas, the pyramids? The Dead Sea, Dad? The Dead Sea? Well, I'm also thinking of stopping off in Japan, Dad. Remember my crazy idea, Japanese running shoes? Right? It could be huge, Dad, huge. I was laying it on thick, putting on the hard sell, extra hard, because I always hated selling, and because this particular sell had zero chance.
I think what Shoe Dog did was inspire the heck out of me in terms of pursuing your passions, your mission, your movement with relentlessness. But also, again, a reminder, there's so many moments where he talked about how he sacrificed his friends, how he didn't have friends, he didn't have community, how he just focused on work the whole time. And it also reminds me of the fact that those periods of his life must have been really lonely, and that it continues to remind me of my mission, which is to inspire each person to put your laptop down, to commit to the commitments that you've made with your friends, to meet them for dinner, for lunch. Those are the moments in your life where you need them the most. You don't have to experience the deep low lows. I have so many friends who are entrepreneurs who've raised $100 million, $500 million, who are, heads of public companies, who've had major breakdowns, nervous breakdowns, had to take sabbaticals from their complete lack of balance. And there's all of our suffering in this country and this planet happens from our lack of understanding for the importance of belonging, and we're now just after our own gain, our own interest. And it's contributing to our anxiety and depression epidemic too. So the more we get back to community and belonging and the importance of it, and really getting intentional about the 3 to 5 friends you call your inner core, how much better the world would be. And that's my big mission in life right now.
Wow. Well, where can we find you, Radha?
You can find me personally on Instagram at love.radha. That's LOVE.RADHA. And then you can find Daybreaker. Come dance with us on dance floors across the country, across the world at daybreaker.com. You can find your city, put in your email. You'll start receiving our secret, not so secret emails. And then my book, Belong, you can find at belongbook.com.
Radha, thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a wonderful conversation.
Books of Your Life is produced by me, Elizabeth, with Melissa Yeager Miller. Our engineers were Mark Atkinson and Dave Fender. Our theme was composed by Mia Schettino. You can find this podcast and all the books we discussed with Radha Agrawal on Goodreads in the book group Books of Your Life with Elizabeth. Goodreads is the world's largest site for finding and sharing books with your friends. Audiobooks from Audible are a great way to get more books in your life. With the free Audible app, you can listen while commuting, doing chores, working out, anytime, anywhere on any device. Audible's unmatched selection includes my guest, Radha Agrawal's recommendation, Shoe Dog. Get it free along with 2 selected Audible original titles when you start a 30-day trial or choose any other audiobook. To get started, just visit audible.com/Goodreads or text Goodreads to 500500.